The marine ecosystem doesn't seem like it's being affected at the moment because of all these eco-friendly changes we've been making, but one major factor people haven't been considering is the fishing industries. The US and other countries have been making headway with trying to alter the equipment, but we need to start advocating for a global change. Now, a marine turtle newsletter, popular newsletter for most sea turtle researchers, Maria Marcovaldi, said fishery is defined by parameters such as characterization of gear, boat, target species, spatial and temporal distribution, organizational aspects, offloading locations, institutional interfaces, fishermen, relevant legislation, and fishing effort. That's a lot to go off of. It's a lot to deal with. And we're doing our best to prevent plastics and other forms of pollution from entering the water, but the fishing industries aren't increasing the damage. And when they increase the damage, it makes our efforts useless. In order to make a global difference on our marine ecosystem, we need to put to practice these lethal pieces of equipment for fishing industries everywhere so we can make a bigger impact. Now, from that same newsletter, there was a specific project done called Project Tamar data in Brazil. And it's on the data of longline and drift nets. Long lines are long lines underwater that have set hooks on them that catch a bunch of fish. Drift net is the same as trawling, which you take a net and you scoop up a bunch of fish after you've baited the water. Preliminary data and anecdotal reports from fishermen suggest that the main species interacting with pelagic longline gear are primarily loggerheads and leatherbacks, followed by occasional captures of green and olive ridley turtles, with a reportedly high incidence of turtles captured and released alive. Preliminary data obtained from a few onboard observers from anecdotal reports from fishermen suggest that most of the sea turtles captured in fisheries, or with trawl fisheries, are leatherback and loggerhead turtles, with occasional captures of green and hawk-billed turtles. There's a high mortality rate upon this capture. Now, a man named Balkan did the same form of study but with seabirds, and the incidental take of seabirds in commercial fisheries. The total average annual incidental mortality of seabirds in commercial fisheries monitored for this mortality in Alaska is 11,000 birds. 11,000 birds, that's way too many. This should be considered a minimum estimate of mortality in Alaska because some commercial fisheries, especially many salmon fisheries, are not monitored for the incidental mortality of seabirds. That's insane to me. Now, another report was done on the incidental capture and mortality of sea turtles in Australia, specifically in northern prawn fisheries. 4 species of turtle were captured in research surveys. The flatback was the dominant species, although the loggerhead and the olive ridley were common, and the green turtle was occasionally captured. The size of the turtle captured varied with the duration of the trawl and water depth. The rate of mortality amongst captured turtles also varied with trawl duration. There were no mortality rates for less than 90 minutes, 5% in trawls of 165 minutes, and 7% in trawls of 180 minutes. Now, the use of these potentially lethal equipment in this major industry is causing the marine life population to decrease at a substantial rate over time due to these reckless bycatch incidences. Now, the setting of baited hooks by stealth underwater, which is a study done by Graham Robertson. And while it's apparent, he baited hooks released 4 meters underwater, and it reduced the seabird mortality by 87%, compared to baits set at sea surface. Baits set 10 meters underwater reduced seabird mortality by 100%. Underwater setting could improve the conservation status of fisheries affected by seabirds. And while it's apparent that marine life is being harmed significantly, we already begun to take appropriate countermeasures to prevent any further harm to them, such as what Graham Robertson has done. The only problem stems from the dilemma of trying to make these changes global. Now, Bernice Silva said that the incidental capture of sea turtles is non-lethal fisheries such as Brazilian pound nets could also provide data on trends of population nesting in distant places and contribute to the assessment of population of sea turtles within their area. Other countries are beginning to put these new methods and pieces of equipment into place and getting impressive results from the changes being made, especially in regard to research and population increases. Anton Tucker stated that Australian trawl fisheries are structured differently and good communication occurs between industry and researchers, which is something that other countries need to start developing in order for us to help with conservation efforts. Now, TEDs, or turtle evacuation devices, are being inserted into these trawl nets so that it makes it easier for sea turtles to escape. And they've already noticed that there's been an increase in acceptance among the fishing industries in Australia. Now, Christopher Joyner said the key to future international marine conservation relies on multilateral rather than unilateral approach. Thus, environmentally conscious governments such as the United States should continue to encourage global adoption of marine conservation policies without impinging on international norms and standards for international commercial transactions. Now, although there are many different factors such as economic status and cultural norms that we need to be taken into consideration when dealing with these implementations, we need to come together as both nationally and globally to make sure that we can progress to a future filled with marine abundance. In order to make the global difference in our marine ecosystem, we need to put to practice these non-lethal pieces of equipment for fishing industries everywhere so we can make a bigger impact. By having other countries participate in these practices, we can help maintain and flourish the diminishing marine life populations being impacted by this problem. We must unite as one as to alleviate the suffering of many innocents. There are many marine animals being harmed at the cost of making things convenient for us. And that ends today. If we work together, not only will the ecosystem improve, we will be able to diminish the amount of unnecessary casualties and inhumane practices done in these fisheries. Thank you.